So if you don't know what Hazbin Hotel is, then you've probably been living under a rock for the past, I don't know, year? 2 years? Anyway, it's some animated series over here on YouTube, and I don't really like it, but that's not the point. The point is that the film theorists made a theory about it, and then a user by the name of Nothing is Scary made a response to that, and that's where I come in, because I didn't really like the response.
So, a lot of people don't understand why I don't like MatPat's theories, and I'm going to explain why by critiquing 2 of MatPat's theories. The second one's going to be a surprise, but this one is on his newest has-been theory, which really isn't good and is easily disprovable if you think about it for a few seconds. But the reason I'm doing this is because a lot of people, when I complain about MatPat's theories in private, sometimes say, "Oh, why do you care so much?" And it's just because his theories are bad. Like, there isn't any underlying reason, and it just makes bad videos. Basically what he does is he cobbles together an idea for a theory. Like, it could be something as simple as, oh, the main character is dead. And then he cherry picks information in the most obvious way to essentially showcase how his theory is right.
Hey you! Yeah, you in the audience, you might want to remember that point about cherry picking, cause it'll be pretty funny later. Also, Scary's microphone crackles like popcorn in a microwave. I think he probably should get a new microphone.
Cheese.
Hazbin Hotel is just one heck of a show, right? I mean, in one episode, the one episode in existence, you have a killer premise, unbelievable animation, sharp writing, catchy musical numbers, and amazing characters to boot. I mean, in just 30 minutes, the pilot alone has more content than whole seasons of other shows. But before I get into the meat and potatoes,
what I find really funny is before this theory was released, he announced he was making it, and no one wanted him to do it because they assumed it would be a garbage theory. And I'm getting the impression that that's why he's complimenting the show so hard, because he's trying to pull a, guys, it's okay, I'm a part of your fandom.
Yes, because God forbid him complimenting something that he makes a theory on. Like, if he compliments a piece of media, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's appealing to the fandom, because complimenting something is pretty much just showing admiration for something.
Well, friends, my mini theory is that Alistair the Radio Demon gets his powers from none other than Gravity Falls' own Bill Cipher. Now, let me be perfectly clear on this. I know this isn't true, but the similarities...
Okay, so if you know it's not true, then why are you even mentioning it? You're literally just padding out the video for time. Like, I don't get that. And the other thing is, no, MatPat, Bill Cipher is not similar to Alistair in any way. They have completely different motives, they're completely different characters. Literally the only thing they have in common is that they can bend reality. In fact, Hazbin Hotel is something that f***ing Vivzy has been working on since, I think, she was in high school? She's been working on it for so long, she had the idea for Alistair before Gravity Falls came out. So, this doesn't make any sense.
Funnily enough, MatPat gives an explanation for his Bill Cipher theory, but that was conveniently left out.
Well, friends, my mini theory is that Alistair the Radio Demon gets his powers from none other than Gravity Falls' own Bill Cipher. Now, let me be perfectly clear on this. I know this isn't true, but the similarities between the two characters are uncanny. I mean, Alistair's microphone is alive. It also has that one-eyed thing going for it, just like everyone's favorite equilateral lad, Bill. Both Bill and Alistair trick you into making deals that you're gonna go on to regret. Both ominously glow when they're making said deals, and the deals of both are seemingly sealed with a handshake. Both are closely associated with mysterious runic symbols that fly in and around them. Both also seem motivated by the same thing, boredom and a large desire to use their powers to create chaos for really no good reason. But all of that's superficial, right? It's all typical deal with the devil business. No, it's the whole radio demon thing that gets me. Alistair's voice in Hazbin Hotel sounds like an old-timey radio, which is cool, it's very creative characterization, but it also just feels random. Too random. They even show an example of the types of radios that he broadcasts on, and they're the type that are pulled straight out of the late 30s and early 40s. Now, why would I care about that? Well, Bill Cipher is most closely associated with one particular song, We'll Meet Again, a love song that was made popular by the singer Vera Lynn. It's a great song, all-time classic. But why I bring it up here is that it was first made famous during World War II, which, wouldn't you know it, just so happened to be during the late 30s and early 40s, the exact time that Alistair's voice is drawn from. The timeline matches up. So could it be that the reason Alistair is so powerful powerful when he first enters the underworld is that he has the powers of Bill Cipher on his side. Probably not. Probably just inspiration the creator of the series got from Gravity Falls. Still, it is my personal headcanon for now.
It's funny how he says that MatPat is a cherry picker, someone who uses evidence that suits their own narrative, while also ignoring other vital evidence. Yet, Scary is also cherry picking here, because he says that Alistair and Bill have nothing in common, while disregarding MatPat's explanation.
I also had to cut a lot from this video in order to edit it properly, because MatPat spends most of the theory reminding you to subscribe and referencing Bill Cipher, Gravity Falls, Rick and Morty, and a bunch of other unrelated things. He's literally just padding out the theory and reminding you to subscribe. The actual theory is probably like 6 minutes. This is like over 20 minutes of video.
Except, no. He stops with the Gravity Falls, Rick and Morty stuff at around the 3-minute and 40-second mark. So apparently, you don't understand how time works.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where we'll meet again. Do know where, do know when. It'll be 1 week from today when we have another upload, hence why you should subscribe in the next 5 seconds. By the way, while you're down there crucifying the subscribe button, leave a comment. Are you a Gravity Falls fan? And if you are, who is your favorite character? Just curious if that whole mini theory at the top of the episode went over everyone's head. It'd be pretty awesome to see Bill show up somewhere else one of these days. Something tells me not a show where one of the main characters is named after a drug. Then again, he did show up in I believe, an official Rick and Morty short, didn't he? So, stranger things have happened. Anyway, you know what they say, the devil's in the details.
That's not the only place he is.
WandaVision, get out of this theory. You're done. You are done. We've dedicated enough theories to you. Get out of here. Anyway, today we're going to be looking into a project that a lot of you have been asking me to do for quite some time. Hazbin Hotel.
That clip begins where his mini-theory about Bill Cipher ends, and the part where he says that he's gonna be talking about Hazbin Hotel is when the theory officially begins. Yeah, the beginning is padded out, I agree with you there, but you say that the padded out part is about 20 minutes, which, no. And maybe Scary is over-exaggerating, but it still comes off as being dishonest. Also, MatPat's theory is only 9 minutes long, so when Scary says that MatPat's padding out the video for 20 minutes, that's kind of funny, but in a bad way.
Episode in 2 short webcomics. I would have just left it alone, but after Hazbin's sister series, heck of a boss, included freaky animatronics, I knew it was my time. Creepy animatronics, not gonna brag, but they're kinda my bat signal. So we'll save the juice.
2 things. Firstly, you're telling me the only reason you made this theory is because Hell of a Boss had an animatronic character, and that made you think of Five Nights at Freddy's. This is why most people don't take your theories seriously. It's not why I don't take your theories seriously, but this is why a lot of people don't take your theories seriously.
Well, it would have been better if you didn't take this part seriously, because that was a joke. Like, do you really think that he made this video just because of animatronics, when he clearly says that he has a theory to present?
But secondly, why did you censor the word hell of a boss?
Well, that's because YouTube doesn't like swear words, and it demonetizes videos for having them.
Cheese.
But the question I want to know, what I need to solve as we wait for any news about this series, is what she has to do to make a difference.
Ah yes, it's always nice to know that MatPat's videos include seizure fuel. Like, even if you think that the flashing light effect looks cool, is that really a justification? Also, yeah, I know this commentary is on Scary, but I felt like making this point anyway.
Like, if her goal is to replace the cleanse by rehabilitating enough souls to clear out room and heck, how many souls are we talking about here? How big does this hotel have to be?
I love how you go out saying that, oh yeah, I'm not going to do lore until more of the show comes out, because there's not enough lore to talk about. And then you ask a question that realistically cannot be answered through one episode.
So you probably want to keep this part in mind, because it'll be relevant in literally a few seconds.
Cheese.
However, despite there being a bunch of ringed layers Attack on Titan style, only the top ring, the Pride ring, matters for our calculations today.
Rings? Rings? The last point you put in the video was MatPat talking about rehabilitation and lore, but somehow we're talking about rings now. You cut stuff out. That's the only explanation, you just cut stuff out. And if you check MatPat's original video, you'll see that there is a whole chunk of stuff cut out.
Like, if her goal is to replace the cleanse by rehabilitating enough souls to clear out room and heck, how many souls are we talking about here? How big does this hotel have to be? Just how outlandish are Charlie's plans? Long story short, when the population of Hades is bursting, what is it gonna take to reach an equilibrium?
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
That's right, theorists. Today we're pulling a classic reverse Thanos by balancing the population, except this time everyone's already dead. So let's start by outlining this crazy universe. Between the two shows helmed by creator Pop, we've been told a lot about the machinations of this underworld. We learned from the opening song of Hell of a Boss Episode 2 that there are 7 rings in Heck, similar to the layout of Dante's Inferno, -2.
And if the 7 rings collapse, although the day could be my last, you will be okay.
There might have been 9 at one point, as the 9 circles are referenced in the pilot episode of Hazbin.
What in the 9 circles makes you think a single denizen of would give 2 about becoming a better person?
But since then, apparently it's collapsed back down to 7, with each being named after one of the 7 deadly sins. However, despite there being a bunch of ringed layers Attack on Titan style, only the top ring, the Pride ring, matters for our calculations today.
And that's over a minute of context. Yeah, not looking good on your end. And sure, you don't have to cover every single point that MatPat makes, but the problem here is that in your video, MatPat goes from talking about rehabilitation to talking about something that seems completely unrelated at face value.
You see, according to this official post on Twitter, quote, dead sinners can only exist on the top ring, Pride. Other rings house native-born demons, and human souls aren't allowed to travel between the rings. Oh, and Canadians are kept elsewhere because of reasons.
There's a town for the Canadians, and it's just little Canada.
The
It's
Canadian part of is just called heck.
just
Don't you love it when lore is made up on the fly during a live stream? No,
As funny as that clip is, I don't think that's actually canon. They joke a lot like that on those streams, like, that just because something is said doesn't immediately make it canon. I'm laughing because it's actually kind of funny, but this is actually a problem I have with MatPat's theories overall, and that's he'll take things that realistically mean nothing and assume it's extremely important to the lore. And considering this didn't even happen within the show, there's a huge chance this isn't canon.
Or, you know, he thought that Canadian heck was funny and wanted to mention that in the video. I mean, he doesn't even mention it throughout the rest of the video. Yet you still say that he's treating it as if it's extremely important, even though he really isn't doing that.
how many souls is Charlie gonna have to redeem each year to keep the population of the necropolis from swelling too high? Well, funny enough, the problem is a bit simpler than it might first appear. We actually don't need to know the size of Pentagram City, or the Pride Ring, or do things like we did during our Attack on Titan theory where we measured ring population density and all that. Because this time, we are told explicitly that the city is at capacity, and that the yearly cleansing is to knock that number back down. That means we only need to be focused on the rate of new souls entering their unhappy afterlives. If, at the end of the year, the underworld is winding up at capacity, well, Charlie would need to redeem as many souls as would wind up down there in order to maintain an equilibrium.
You gotta keep in mind, MatPat, is you are about to compare the Hazbin universe to real-life standards and real-life numbers. The only problem with that is that Hazbin not only is a fictional universe, but it's a fictional universe that Pop has literally verbatim stated has nothing to do with the real world and has differences from our universe.
And here's the part where I ask for evidence like the generic commentator that I am. Like, when does Pop say this? Where does Pop say this? How does Pop say this?
This universe is not the same as ours.
well, duh.
Cheese.
And the good news for Charlie is that the rate of souls going into the afterlife is starting to stabilize. The past 150 years or so has been absolutely wild for the growth of the human population. In 1900, there were about 1.6 billion people on planet Earth. And just 100 years later, in the year 2000, that number had reached 6 billion. Fast forward another 20 years to today, and we're at 7.8 billion people.
That graph that you're talking about means literally nothing, and it does not mean what you're saying it means. That's the graph showing the amount of people who live on the planet from the year 1900 to the year 2020. And I don't think you understand that that has nothing to do with the amount of people who have died. That graph could mean literally anything from just simply more people are choosing to have kids now than back then, or even better, more people died in the past than they have recently. But I don't think it's that. I think it's that the population is just simply increasing. Because I doubt a lot of people were having kids during World War I and II, the Great Depression, the Cold War, and, you know, pretty much every major thing that happened in the years 1900 to the year 2020. That's a solid 1,000 years, MatPat.
Yeah, no. MatPat's point is actually relevant to the theory. Because populations are rising, that means that a good number of people will pass away since there are now more people, which brings a lot of people to the underworld. MatPat's theory is about how Charlie's Hotel cannot work because of overcrowding, but you cut that out, didn't you?
The past 150 years or so has been absolutely wild for the growth of the human population. In 1900, there were about 1.6 billion people on planet Earth. And just 100 years later, in the year 2000, that number had reached 6 billion. Fast forward another 20 years to today, and we're at 7.8 billion people. Luckily, for everyone and everything on planet Earth, that number is no longer increasing at anywhere near the same rate it was back then. Humanity's growth rate is slowing. And for more on why that's happening, you can actually check out our classic episode about why Thanos' plan in Infinity War isn't as crazy as it might initially sound. Long story short, people are investing more time into their children, and are thus having fewer of them, causing the population to overall level out. Sociologists have made various estimates about where the population will eventually max out, but reasonable guesses put the total somewhere between 10 and 12 billion people. Certainly a lot, but also not super far off from where we are right now. The death rate is also constantly fluctuating, but has, in general, been falling for the past century. In fact, it's thought that the death rate actually bottomed out in 2018. Projections made by the United Nations already estimate that death rates will begin rising again over the next few decades, as the population begins to age and as demographic shifts towards poorer countries put a larger share of the population in situations with worse medical conditions. But 2018's global death rate was 7.546 deaths for every 1,000 people. With a global population of 7.58 billion in 2018, that would mean that roughly 57.2 million people died in that single year.
Cutting context sure is fun, isn't it? Also, you say, I doubt people were having kids during major events in the 1900s. Do you not know what the baby boom is? It happened right after World War II, and it marked a significant increase in birth rates across America. If it wasn't for the baby boom, Americans like myself probably wouldn't even be here.
Like, I don't think that makes a good statement. And let's be honest, the 1900s weren't that great for human civilization.
It's funny how Scary says that MatPat's graph has nothing to do with this theory, and then Scary Man says that the 1900s weren't a good time for human civilization. Like, this is a video on MatPat's theory about how population increase affects the world of Hazbin Hotel. What does the quality of human civilization have to do with MatPat's theory? And don't say, oh well, it doesn't relate to MatPat's theory. It should relate to MatPat's theory, because this is a video about MatPat's theory.
But 2018's global death rate was 7.546 deaths for every 1,000 people. With a global population of 7.58 billion in 2018, that would mean that roughly 57.2 million people died in that single year. But of course, not all of those people are going down below, if you know what I mean. Only the sinners are. Now, in the show, we see depictions of all sorts of sinful activities, everything from murder to the usage of illicit substances.
So you're saying people who use drugs are sinners and are most likely to go to hell. Think of the implications of what you're saying, MatPat.
For some reason, he doesn't start talking about the problems with MatPat's statement until the next interjection. He just vaguely says that MatPat should think about what he says. I don't really get why this interjection is here, when it could have been removed without changing much.
So one way to solve our problem would be to take that group of 57 million deaths and figure out what percent of them have engaged in one or multiple of the damning activities that we see happening in and around Pentagram City. According to data from the 2016 World Drug Report, there were 247 million illicit substance users worldwide in that year alone, which is roughly 3% of the global population. And when I say they're using the stuff, I mean that they're using the hard stuff. The stuff I can't say on YouTube for fear of this video getting even more risk of demonetization than it already has. So right off the bat, that 3% translates to 1.7 million people sent to the deep depths below off of drug use alone. Homicides are...
Okay, so I'm gonna just say this right now, because apparently MatPat just wants to make it sound like drug users go to hell. They don't. I don't believe in any religions, but I do believe 100% that drug users are not bad people. Some of them do bad things, but a decent majority of them have problems with mental health and addiction and don't know where to turn. They're victims. The fact of the matter is, MatPat, you should know a thing or two about mental health.
Okay, so it's cool that you have your own moral compass or whatever, but the qualifications of being a sinner aren't based on what you think, unfortunately. Instead, they're based on religious text because sin is inherently a religious concept. And religious text is strictly against addictions, something that is heavily associated with these substances. And MatPat is looking at these substances in the context of sin. Corinthians 6:19 through 6:20. Do you not know your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You are bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. And then there is Proverbs 23:20 through 21. Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat, for drunkards and gluttons become poor. Anyway, as a counter-argument, I guess you could say that my argument only takes one religion into account, but Jews and Christians essentially believe the same stuff until Jesus is introduced, and Muslims don't believe in alcohol in the first place. And yeah, I get why you don't take religion into account. You specifically said that you're not religious, and I can't tell you that you're wrong because of your lack of faith. What is this, an episode of VeggieTales? But yeah, I still think that you don't understand sin as a concept.
Use alone. Homicides are, thankfully, significantly less, with an average of 7 homicides for every 100,000 people globally. If we assume that each one of those homicides is being committed by a separate person, which obviously isn't true but is going to give us our worst case scenario, that adds another 530,000 new additions to our hotel guest list. That number is very concerning when you think about what it represents. The number of murderers on this planet is too darn high. For other violent crimes, the average is actually a bit higher, 12.7 per 100,000 people globally, boosting us by another 962,660 souls. So, after the substances and horrific violence section of our program today, we're walking around with a pretty sizable hotel already. 3.2 million souls, all needing to be redeemed if heck is going to maintain some level of population equilibrium.
Okay, so this is my biggest problem with the theory.
I like how he cuts film theory off as MatPat is about to begin his new sentence. Because of this, his point begins after MatPat says, eh. Why can't you cut the video off after MatPat says his sentence instead of just eh? Then again, this was the only part of the commentary that made me laugh, so there's that. And sure, you can say, but Scary isn't trying to be funny, and that's right. But when a video makes you laugh because of something like an editing error, something that's clearly unintentional, then I'd say that's kind of a bad thing.
MatPat treats these 3 sins as separate statistics, and they are separate statistics. The problem is, when you look at these separate statistics combined, you should immediately realize, MatPat, that these numbers overlap. How many people who have committed murder do you think also have happened to do drugs? Because I don't think it's very far-fetched to believe that a murderer might be doing a little bit of that you know? Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of murderers do drugs. It's almost as if MatPat doesn't think that drug cartels exist. You know, basically a drug mafia. They commit murders, and they clearly do stuff with drugs. These numbers overlap. Not to mention, you cannot account for every single possible sin, so it is not possible to get this number.
Yeah, this point will be funny in a second, so remember that.
As of last year, Marriott Hotels is the world's #1 hotel chain, with nearly 1.4 million rooms available for their guests worldwide. Charlie's Happy Hotel already needs more than double that amount, and we are still not done counting sins, my friends, because it's this last one where the numbers really start to skyrocket. Infidelity, cheating in relationships. Now, while I'm not promoting religion here or anything, and we all know that different religions can have some major differences, one thing that they all tend to agree on is that you're not supposed to be, you know, coveting your neighbor's wife and all that. But despite those warnings, humanity certainly seems to be doing a lot of coveting these days. According to an exhaustive review of research done on committed relationships published back in 2005, 40% of unmarried relationships and 25% of marriages see at least one incident of infidelity. Another survey roughly backs this up. 20% of men and 13% of women admit to having a fling with someone other than their spouse while married. So I'm gonna split the difference here and say that, I don't know, know, roughly 30% of people are skis-balls who have cheated at some point in their life. Y'all suck. As someone who has cheated on in the past, I hope the radio demon eats your heads off.
Okay, so I'm gonna address this whole chunk I just showed you in order. So firstly, about the hotel rooms. You do realize Alistair literally creates a new sign from the hotel by doing basically nothing. What makes you think he can't just simply make more rooms?
Alistair never makes any hotel rooms though. He changes the sign, but he doesn't do anything like make a hotel room. And yeah, I think that Charlie's friend Vanity says something about Alistair being powerful, but how powerful is he? Also, yes, I know that I got Charlie's girlfriend's name wrong, but I don't care cause I don't want to watch the pilot again. I don't want to hear any more jokes about how gay a Stolfo spider is.
But secondly, and this is a pretty big one, people who cheat on their significant other can also do other things. I mean, I could immediately imagine a scenario where someone cheats on their significant other because they're stressed or the relationship's not going well or they're depressed or whatever. They turn to drugs and, I don't know, so on and so forth. Like, they could commit other sins. I'm pretty sure people who cheat on their significant other may overlap with those other statistics as well. Again, you're completely ignoring the fact that these statistics can overlap.
Really? And sure, I guess you could say that there's a different scenario this time because it's being applied to infidelity, but it's still the same point about overlapping statistics. Was it so important to mention it twice?
Cheese.
And it looks like he's gonna have plenty to feast on because that suddenly jumps us up by, get this, another 17.3 million sinners, sending our grand total to 20.5 million new sinner denizens of Pentagram City waiting to get purged each and every year, requiring the single biggest rehabilitation initiative you could ever need. Might want to consider getting more help for that front desk there, Charlie. Now, obviously, a lot of these people might be overlapping in their sins, right? Not all of these are mutually exclusive to each other. So maybe I'm going about this all wrong. Maybe this isn't about me judging other people based on their sin totals.
See that, Scary? MatPat just mentioned your counter-argument. Why are you telling him something that he's already aware of? And even if he takes that overlapping point into account, there would still be a good couple million sinners. So MatPat's points will still have a leg to stand on. The title of this video is a lie. You're not really doing much debunking.
Cheese.
Seriously, guys, some of you missed the memo about always giving yourself a good review, because when people were asked to self-report about whether they would go to heaven or to the other place, 10% of people said that they were definitely going to the bad place. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Another 42% said that they weren't sure. And if they're not sure, well, pretty sure St. Peter at the pearly gates ain't gonna be giving you the benefit of the doubt. By those numbers, that 20.5 million souls was an understatement. Now we're talking closer to the range of 30 million. Hold up!
MatPat, you fucking moron.
Salt tastes pretty good, doesn't it?
That self-report thing was a completely different statistic that didn't take the previous statistic into account. You don't add the number you had before to this number. That's 42% of the global population telling themselves that they think they're going to go to hell.
This point kinda confuses me. When Scary says that you're not supposed to add a number you had before to this number, does he say that you're not supposed to add the percentage of people that say that they're going to with the percentage of people that say that they're not sure? This vague wording here kinda throws me off.
Cheese.
And there's someone else working against her in this whole process too. The real twist hiding at the end of both of these shows is that the Immediate Murder Patrol, IMP, the organization that we follow in the sister show Hello.
Excuse me, MatPat, can you repeat that?
The Immediate Murder Patrol
When you want somebody gone and you don't want to wait too long, call
The Immediate Murder Patrol?
I'm not kidding when I say that Scary plays the entirety of the Imp theme song, which just unnecessarily makes the video longer than it needs to be. Alright, we get it. MatPat got the name wrong. Now stop freaking nitpicking. And sure, nitpicks aren't necessarily bad just because they are nitpicks, but this is such a minor mistake to the point where it barely even matters.
I honestly don't know how MatPat f***ed that up.
Why are you still talking about this? You've already made your point. Anyway, that's all I had to say about Scary's video. I don't really have any other thoughts, so I guess I can end the video here.